Welcome to the News9 Plus Show on the world's first news and current affairs OTT platform, News9 Plus. The Supreme Court delivered a historic verdict on the 15th of February. It banned the funding of political parties through electoral bonds. But the court did not lay down another alternate scheme for political funding. In fact, it marks a return to the pre-2018 era of cash donations and corporate donations. In 1969, India banned corporate funding of political parties. In the 70s, there was an expression, briefcase politics, the black money that was stuffed in suitcases and used to fund political parties. Are we witnessing a return to the era of briefcase politics? Joining me to discuss this are Mr. P.K. Malhotra, former law secretary, Yashwant Deshmukh, founder of C-Voter, and my colleague Kartikeya Sharma in the studio here. Yashwant, I want to start by asking you, electoral bonds are only a small part of the larger issue. They're like feeling the trunk of the elephant and saying, this is the elephant. The larger elephant in the room that's not been addressed is the issue of black money funding Indian elections. Tell us how much of an impact this judgment is going to have on this larger elephant in the room of black money funding Indian elections.
That's the ironical part of it, because not only it has not, this judgment is not addressing that issue, it is also taking away the good part of it, what was being tried to achieve through the electoral bonds.
Right.
I understand the reservation against the electoral bond, and I am totally in for the RTI part, the transparency part of it.
Right.
What I fail to understand that if RTI and transparency part through the court would have been achieved,
yes,
then that should have been good enough.
Right.
The court should have allowed to continue provided the transparency is there. By scrapping this thing wholesale and everything, lock, stock and barrel, it's like throwing everything away. So there is no solution to it.
Right.
The court says that the state has to be is liable for finding out a solution.
Yes.
State is the domain of the state. But
right.
Having said that, there is no solution to it. Right?
There's no solution. And Kartikeya, this thing of the judgment of the Supreme Court marks a return, you think, to the era of suitcase politics? It's back again, nudge, nudge, wink, wink, suitcase in hand.
This is a classic case where something which was touted as reform has turned into a legal issue.
Yes.
And this does not have roots in 2017. It has roots in the first amendment which was done during Atal Bihari Vajpayee's time, when under the amended Income Tax Act, the political donations were considered as contribution and you can get some relief.
Right.
Subsequently, the link between the donor and its identity was broken during Pranab Mukherjee's tenure in 2010.
Right.
And then came the push from Arun Jaitley 2017-18, and a part of his speech was pushed in the Press Information Bureau, in which he argued that this is the best way to streamline money through banks, because if you don't streamline this money through banks, this suitcase will return.
Right.
And this was a jibe which I remember when Rahul Gandhi said suit boot ki sarkar, he said UPA is suitcase ki sarkar.
Right, absolutely.
But this suitcase reminds me of that late Mr. Arun Jaitley's jibe.
Right.
So, yes, suitcase will return, but the issue to me is, what about those people who had given money under the assurance that their names will not be divulged?
Right.
So, it's an ethical issue.
Right.
Now, and then you are implementing this law retrospectively. So, what happens to those people who were covered under the law and the immunity is gone?
Right.
That's one. And secondly, there is no alternative system in place. And the return to the suitcase Raj sits on the larger issue of electoral funding, which is the mother of all corruption in this country. So how do you resolve the mother of all corruption? That's the larger issue. Right to privacy, non-application of right to privacy when it comes to contribution is one thing. But the larger issue is, how do you resolve the issue of black money in Indian politics? Or how do you resolve the money of counterfeits and currency in Indian politics, where digitization has resolved a lot of issues?
Yes. Right, absolutely. And this point that you said, suitcase ki sarkar versus suit boot ki sarkar, that's an interesting point there. Mr. Malhotra, The Supreme Court has given its verdict. It's not suggested an alternative method of political funding. The elephant in the room still remains corruption, black money, now directly funding. Earlier it was through electoral bonds, possibly a small part of it, and now it's going to be through cash, the return of Suitcase Raj. What's the way forward? I mean, given the fact that we are just months away from the general elections of 2024.
Let us appreciate one thing. The issue before the Supreme Court was only the question of legal validity of the process of electoral bonds, which was introduced into the system in 2018 by amendment in the Finance Act. Certain laws were amended and political electoral bonds concept was brought into in the name of saying that there will be transparency and probably black money coming to the politics can be stopped.
Yes.
So it has, the court has ruled only on the constitutional validity of the system which was brought into in 2018. So far as the political funding is concerned, please remember electoral bond is not the only way of funding the political parties. Parties are getting, they have money, they are getting bank interest, they have their own membership fee, they have other assets also which they can sell and earn money. They earn money from their publications also. Then there are voluntary donations which are more than 20,000 which are coming to them. So these are all known sources of income.
Yes.
So far as the unknown sources which are not disclosed to the public are concerned, I think electoral bond fall in that category because the public at large doesn't know which political party is getting how much amount from which legal entity.
Yes.
And that was the issue on which the Supreme Court has given its ruling. Now, the panelists before me have said that the Supreme Court has not given any solution. I think had the Supreme Court given any solution, then probably there would have been an allegation saying that Supreme Court is entering into a policy domain.
Yes.
So it examined only the constitutional validity of the issue, and it said that because there is no transparency and it is violative of the fundamental right to information, it is constitutionally invalid. Now, I think it is for the government to come out with a better scheme. Obviously, reverting back to the earlier system, which was prevalent before the amendment in 2018, is not the solution at all. We have to find out some other way out. One of the issues which has been discussed in the past also was that then let there be a national election fund out of which the political parties will be funded, and probably there is a ceiling on the amount what can be spent. Now, the amount which they were getting through electoral bonds, there was no limit on that. Even the loss-making company can also donate 100% of money or thousands of crores of rupees, and there were no questions asked because political party has not to pay any tax on that. And you don't know that the corporate houses which are giving, as the Supreme Court judgment itself has said, probably there may be a quid pro quo. And I think that's a very, very serious allegation made by the Supreme Court so far as the administration of this scheme is concerned. Because the electoral bond, the party, the person, any individual entity can buy the electoral bond and it can give to any party. And there is a mechanism within which it is to be encashed. And there are timelines within which this is to be issued and encashed. Unless that timelines are followed, the ultimate money they are collected in the electoral bond was to go to the Prime Minister Relief Fund.
Yes.
Now, electoral bond, as I said, it is only one of the form of collection. If you are calling it electoral bond and it is not, it is only one of the source of political funding is much larger. Probably people have forgotten the concept that if you are talking of electoral bond, then electoral bond must be spent only on election and not on party activity.
Yes.
But what has happened in the name of electoral bonds, crores of rupees were collected and they are being spent not on election but on other political activity, even creating infrastructure for the political parties.
Yes.
So I think time has come after this Supreme Court judgment has given us an occasion to review the whole system and see that what better system can be adopted so that there is a transparency on the political funding, including the including the election funds.
Absolutely. Mr. Malhotra, thanks. Yashwant, this point that Mr. Malhotra made now, it The bonds address this issue of legitimacy, right? All the donors are registered entities and they're under a high level of regulatory scrutiny. Now you've thrown that system out. What is going to happen now? How the political party is going to fall back on that earlier thing of 20,000 cash donations, or seek other means of raising funds, as Mr. Malhotra mentioned?
Of course, all of this and much more. It will also be the wrong reporting of many things, like for example, wrong reporting of the expenditure done by the parties.
Yes.
It's not just about getting cash by the political parties. It's also about them not reporting fully what their expenditure they are doing.
Yes.
If they are getting by check, they would be paying by the check, and it would be duly reported what they are paying by check. So there is going to be again getting back the whole lot of the cash economy in place, which was being tried to remove. So there is merit to the argument and the judgment given by the Supreme Court. There has to be transparency. We totally get that. But there is no solution. My problem is that they have not provided any solution. It would have been better if they would have provided a solution saying that, okay, first of all, for the due transparency, let all the names be presented of those who have donated.
Yes.
The entire money should go into two different kind of pools. There should be actually ideally two different kind of bonds, national election bond and state election bonds. And that money should be collected in one single pool and distributed just like the proportional representation system, distributed to as per the vote share polled by different parties in the last election. That would have been fair thing, because that would have addressed the thing that, if entity or the business A is giving money only to party A, and party A is in power, then it goes. But if the business entity A is giving money to the central election pool, and only a part of that pool will go to party A, which is in power, based on their last election performance at the national election or the state election, that would have been a justified solution. The thing is that in the name of justice, they have just shut the entire thing down. And that go back to even darker place, ages where we don't know. Even right now, even if you see, there are more than 10,000, 12,000 crore rupees which electoral bonds have been sent. So that means a majority, 90% of the bonds are of 1 crore. That is the highest denomination. Now the thing is that the bond purchase, who has purchased how many bonds, that will be disclosed. But who has purchased which bond and that bond has been used by which political party, that correlation is not there. So even if you publish that, okay, these many bonds were purchased by these many entities and these many bonds were encashed by these political parties, there is no direct correlation of any sort, to say how they have been used by which party, So there would be a kind of transparency, but still not full transparency. Better still, it would have been much better if the Supreme Court had directed that okay, this is what has been done so far, let the full list be published and this thing put into the pool and distributed as per the last performance, and whomsoever has got more than what it is duly share is, like say for example BJP got 50% of the share, it has got 35% of the vote, so less than the 15% vote share, this much of money has to be returned to the pool, somewhere like that. That kind of judgment would have made a much better sense and much more rightful impact.
Streaming on News9 Plus. News is now content. Subscribe and get free vouchers.